So the latest Netflix original, Don't Move, is by Sam Raimi, a director I absolutely love. He's behind Drag Me to Hell, the Evil Dead franchise. The guy cannot miss. So if he's making a movie, I'm going to watch it every time. And in this one, you have a serial killer hunting this woman. He drugs her. She has 20 minutes to survive until her body shuts down. And that alone should sound interesting enough. But the better question is this movie worth 20 minutes of your time?
You have about 20 minutes before you're completely paralyzed.
So Don't Move tells the story of a woman named Iris who's mourning the loss of her son, and one afternoon she goes up to the cliffside to go to her son's memorial with the idea she's going to end her life off the same cliff right next to it. And in the process of this, she runs into a stranger who talks her off the ledge, but little does she know this stranger is a serial killer who's going to drug her and attempt to kill her when her body shuts down in the next 20 minutes. And it really is telling that age-old tale of a character who wants to die, but they're presented with death, and they have to ask themselves the question, how bad do you really want to live and how bad do you really want to die? Because if you don't do anything, this guy's going to kill you. And with that, her life view kind of spins around immediately. And I will say right off the bat, when these two characters are getting to know each other and they're talking about the attempt itself, I thought the dialogue between these two when they're talking about suicide and what it means to live was actually pretty powerful, and they got me engaged and connected to these characters immediately. I've seen it done a lot worse and a lot more corny than this. I thought this was pretty believable and pretty relatable, the conversations they're having about life. I really bought into the setup of this film. This is another one of those survival subgenre films that is very, very simple, but I also thought it was very effective for what it wants to do. Just two main characters, Iris and the stranger hunting her. They carry the entire movie. They are the focal point of this plot. They are in every scene. But it's still interesting enough. It has great cinematography. It looks beautiful. A lot of water, a lot of woods. There's some cliffside shots. I'm a huge sucker for atmospheric horror. I say that all the time on this channel. So if you like one of those isolated cat and mouse movies that takes place in the woods, one person hunting one another, this movie's probably right up your alley. But going into this movie, the premise sounded interesting enough, but I was a little bit worried because there are so many of these survival films nowadays. I never really fully engage with them. They always start off decent or they end decent, or there's just a pacing problem in the middle. There's always something wrong with these films to me where they always fizzle out. They're never any of my favorites. I do enjoy them, but there's always an issue I have. So I was worried with this one. Would it follow the same trajectory where it starts off good, it's interesting enough, and you only have two characters, and it just fizzles out during the halfway point? And I'll get into that. But this movie, for the most part, started off way more intense than I anticipated it to. It gets really anxious when you're watching this and you're following these characters and you're rooting for our protagonist, Iris, to make it out of here. Whenever you have a film like this that only has a couple of main characters, it's very important that you both buy into how they're written and you like the way they're acted. That is the case here. I think they're both really good for what they're asked to do. Iris doesn't have to do as much as he does because she can't talk or move for almost all of this movie. The serial killer is fantastic. I don't know too much of his other work outside of American Horror Story. He played Dandy in that one Freak Show series. He was really good in that. He's good in this. He's one of the ongoing guys in Hollywood who can method act a psychopath really well, and he finds that blend again here. I think he really carries this movie as that serial killer. And that's something I think this movie actually has going for it that a lot of these isolated horror films don't. This movie actually has pretty smart characters. I really like the way the majority of the characters in this were written. About halfway through, I was wondering where this was going to go. It wasn't going to fizzle out. I thought it was really intense when it started off. And you run into a couple of characters between a cop and this older man. And I like the way basically all of these characters were written, the way they acted. I thought they acted realistic enough to move this plot. They were skeptical of the events presented to them. They didn't just buy into these people. They didn't turn their back on them. I thought people fought back when they needed to. I thought the characters in this really helped to move this and make this a lot more engaging than it could have been, a lot more engaging than a lot of these survival films are. Adding to the fact, for the most part, Iris is a pretty badass character and she fights back when she needs to. She makes smart decisions consistently. I really thought she was a cool and rootable protagonist. Again, very important in a survival film when you have one centric character you're supposed to root for and it makes you want to do so. Obviously, this movie's about a guy who's hunting a woman he drugs. She's going to pass out in 20 minutes. But where this movie's at its most effective is watching a person who cannot move struggle in very anxious and tense situations. Watching a person in a pile of bugs, in a house that's burning down, floating down a creek towards a waterfall, all unable to move because this person is paralyzed. It really makes you anxious, yelling at the screen, please move, please get up, please hide from this guy when the drugs wear off so you can survive. Please, can you do something? I just didn't expect it to be as effective, and I really think that's what this movie was attempting to go for, and for the most part, I think it really nails that atmosphere. But even as effective as it is at making you squirm and yell at your screen and hoping this character survives, as I said, these movies with two main characters, they usually fizzle out. I really do think that's the case here as well. First hour or so of this movie, really intense. I was completely locked in. Last half hour or so of this film, I thought really struggled when it comes to the pace. It started getting repetitive. This is a movie I thought had a really good chance of doing something incredibly unique, something original within this subgenre, and it really does just become as predictable as it comes. It feels like you've seen this movie about a dozen times when you get to the ending of it. Overall, guys, I did think the journey getting to that predictable ending was enjoyable enough. Two pretty good leads, very atmospheric. I thought the cinematography and where this takes place in the woods is absolutely beautiful. Some really anxious and anxiety driven scenes. I did not expect it to get so intense at points. I had a really good time with this one. It's definitely nothing I'm going to revisit anytime soon, but I definitely think it's worth a watch and you could do worse. So if any of you guys have seen this one yet, comment down below or let me know what your favorite Sam Raimi or atmospheric horror film is. As always, if you haven't subscribed, join me down below. Peace.